Hello and welcome to video number 6 in my mini video series, How to Write Your Book Using the Snap Sequence Method. In video number 6 I'm going to talk about my favorite writing books and actually a couple of podcasts too that just help me maintain momentum and stay on track. First, I wanted to read to you a quote from Jack London. Jack London says, "Keep a notebook. Travel with it, eat with it, sleep with it. Slap into it every stray thought that flutters up into your brain. Cheap paper is less perishable than gray matter, and lead pencil markings endure longer than memory." And that just is a little bit of a support for my carrying around my bullet journal that I talked about in video number 5. So my favorite writing books, there's quite a few, so I hope you've got a notebook handy. You're going to want to jot these down. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on any one of them, but you may want to take a note just to make sure, so when you go to the bookstore, you'll know what to look for. This is my all-time favorite. This is by Anne Lamott. It's called Bird by Bird. And it has all kinds of great ideas in it. She also has an audio version of this book, and she has, there's an audio, it's like a recording of her speech that you can hear. It's about 2 hours long that she talked it's called Word by Word, but it's the same subject matter. And it's basically how to keep going, how to write every day, and little tips and strategies, and she gives you permission to do a horrible first draft. And she talks about writing in a 1-inch picture frame, which means if you can think of one small part of an event, something that would fit within a 1-inch picture frame, and start there and write about that. And she has all kinds of good ideas like that. And she reads her own audiobooks too, so then you really get to kind of meet her almost by listening to her voice. This one is Stephen King. It's called On Writing, and he is awesome. Of course, everything he writes is great. He can't really write a bad book, and I don't even like horror books, but his characters are some of the best characters that I've ever read about. And this talks about his writing life. It's kind of his memoir about writing and his own life and what he's done. And you can get a sense of his personality in here and his habits and what has worked for him. And there is just there's tons of invaluable lessons in here and wisdom that he gives you. This book is, I bought this at a garage sale, and it's really good because it shows you how to mind map, and it's something that I still use whenever I write anything, when I don't know where to start. And so this is like kind of what his mind map looks like in the book, and it just gives you an idea, and it really helps me just get started. Here's another one. And helps with the outlining and everything else. And like I mentioned in video number 1, I believe it was, you can use your post-it notes for these. So if you're using the post-it note method, each little circle here would be its own post-it note. So just to give you an idea, but all kinds of great ideas, just how to get your brain going and ready to write. Next one is called Writing Down the Bones, and it's by Natalie Goldberg. She's written a couple of others too, and I also have a copy of her Wild Mind. This one was my favorite of the 2 I've read of hers, and it just tells all kinds of great things on how to keep writing, how to start writing, and how to keep writing, you know. I guess that's what most writing books are all about, right? And on page 22, she's got a whole beautiful list of writing prompts. And it just says, she's telling you to make your own list of things, but until you get your own list, here are some other writing ideas that she has. And one that I found very powerful is begin with the phrase, "I remember," and just go from there. And you'll be surprised what your brain spits out. And you'll be like, I remember running across a parking lot, a Kmart parking lot in 1975. And you'll be like, what? And then you just write that little story. And it might be a 10-minute vignette in your life that happened, back in 1975. But it'll get you going. And it's pretty neat. And she's got all kinds of different exercises in here for you and different tips. And that's Natalie Goldberg, Writing Down the Bones. This one I found, I just loved it. I think I read this in one sitting. It's called Writing Your Life, and it's by Lou Willette Stanek. She's a PhD, and her name, it's Lou, L-O-U, but she's a female, and just really great. It's about how to write about your own life. And a lot of things that we start, even if they're fiction, they might be based on a kernel of truth or some kind of small event that happened to us. And we thought, we should tell this story and make our own characters, of course, and let them tell it. But we use that little small event as a starting point or a diving board for our story. And I marked a page in here that has notebook exercises. She talks about keeping a notebook, which most writing books do talk about that. So I hope you already have yours, but if not, the good news is you can go out and buy one. That's always fun to shop for a notebook. She's got make a list of words that make you laugh. Make a list of words that make you hungry. Make a list of words like rush or rumble whose sound implies action. Make a list of all of the automobile accidents you have endured. Hopefully that's none. Make a list of shades of nail polish and lipstick you've worn or that you think should exist. Make up your own. But really great. Motivating and interesting and inspiring when you read this. You'll just want to start writing. And it's just a small little book. You can read it in an afternoon, but you might not want to. You might want to just read a little bit each day so that you can utilize it all. This book is called Making a Literary Life, and it's by Carolyn C. And she is, I believe she's the mother of Lisa C. And Lisa C. has written a few books about, is it Chinese Americans? And so Carolyn C. is her mom, and Carolyn has written several books as well, and I think I've only read one. I've only read The Handyman, but here's a list of Carolyn's books that she's read. But this is just, it's called Advice for Writers and Other Dreamers, and it talks about how she fit writing into her life and what worked for her, and different ideas she has for readers to interact with authors. She talks here about writing charming notes. Every time you read a book that you really enjoyed, you should write a charming note to the author. And I do that. I do email authors when they've written a book that I thought was especially interesting or exciting or very well done. I do email authors, and frequently I do hear back from them, and that's kind of fun. This one is called The Opposite of Fate. It's by Amy Tan. Amy Tan is an awesome author, and I hope you've had a chance to read some of her books. This one here is called, or it's The Opposite of Fate is what it's called, but the subtitle is Memories of a Writing Life. And so she talks, similar to Carolyn C.'s book, Amy Tan talks about how writing fit into her life and how it affected her life, and just different things about words and writing and how she dealt with life through writing and things like that. And just holding this book in my hands makes me remember that I wanted to reread this. So I might do that shortly here. Set that one in a different pile. And this is the very last book I've read, the last writing book I have read most recently. And it's called The 7 Secrets of the Prolific. And it's by Hilary Rettig. And I was lucky enough to meet Hilary in person. Actually, I bought this from her personally. See, she signed it to me right there. And she speaks rather all over the United States. She's got quite a successful career speaking, and she talks to writers and helps them overcome procrastination and perfectionism, which, if you're a perfectionist, and I'm speaking from experience, personal knowledge here, it will create procrastination. I mean, it will, because something isn't going to be perfect, and you have to live with that. And actually, creating these videos is one way that I am trying to do that for myself, because these videos, I'm well aware, are not perfect. But I decided beforehand I'm going to make these videos and I'm going to put them out there, and they're going to go out just the way they are, because this is how I talk, and I didn't want it to be over-rehearsed or anything like that. So it's part of my relinquishing some perfectionist tendencies. And speaking of perfectionism, Anne Lamott talks about that too. And she talks about the oppressor, and perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor. And his job is to keep you from writing and keep you from meeting your goals and realizing your dreams. So Hilary Rettig here in this book gives us seven strategies or solutions to overcoming this perfectionism and procrastination and writer's block. And she has some great tips in here. And she's a very good speaker too. So if you do have the option or the opportunity to hear her speak, I would encourage you to do that. And she coaches writers. She's kind of a writer mentor. She does all kinds of things. And she's just great. If you do have a chance to meet her or hear her speak, I would highly recommend it. That's the short stack of my favorite writing books. And I also wanted to mention podcasts to you. I do listen to a few writing podcasts. My favorite one is Joanna Penn's podcast called The Creative Penn, and it's Penn with a double N. Her last name is Penn. Is that perfect or what? And you can find her at thecreativepenn.com, or you can find her podcast on iTunes. And there's a new one. I haven't even listened to an entire episode yet. It's that new. It's brand new. It's called The Story Grid by Sean Coyne. And I have mentioned his book, The Story Grid, in previous videos. And I have not purchased the book yet. I'm sure I probably will. But for now, I'm listening to his podcast. And I did use his story grid in my latest book, The Sunshine Room. And it helped me out greatly. It's a great concept. It's a structure for a story, and it's a great way to keep track of things. And I never had a way to do that before. My notes were always kind of scattered, but he gives you an actual grid work to put each chapter in that includes the characters that appear and the storyline and what changes in that chapter and everything. You kind of have to see it to appreciate it, so I encourage you to look for that as well, the story grid. And that wraps up video number 6. That's the end of my mini video series. So I wish you the best of luck in writing your books. Thank you.